Can you hear me? Okay. Alright, I feel like I should have my glasses off because I feel like the reflection is too much, but I also can't read without them. I'm just going to take them off and I'll use those little eyeglasses if I need them. Okay. Hi friends, today we're going to go over the books I read in October and the books that I plan to read in November. So, yeah, I already can't read. Okay. In October, I read 13 books, which is kind of spooky-ooky and unplanned. The first one I read was Riley Thorne and the Body in the Closet. Oh my gosh, October was so long. I read that one on the Kindle, so I'll put the cover somewhere. I gave that one 4 stars. I loved the couple, so this is the second in a series. I read the first one before, and I was kind of worried about how it would go with the same couple, but I still love Riley and Nick. And Gabe was a character in the last book that I was like, I liked him, but I love him. Like, he might be my favorite character in the series right now. And I hated the grandma, so that kind of took me out of it. But it was like a good, fun read. It was so long ago. I like took notes, but all I have is about the characters, nothing about the plot. So, 4 stars. Next, I have this one. This is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. 5 stars. This is like, I love this book. I didn't annotate it because of the red edges. I feel like it's just too pretty. But I did like brighten it. I will warn you, this is not a standalone novel. This is a series. The next book doesn't come out until December 2024. And I didn't know that. And I was very, very upset about it. But other than that, it's very, very funny. It's like so clearly like a rom-com. I mean, it's called Assistant to the Villain, obviously. That's hilarious. The villain, I'm just, oh my gosh. I can't even describe. Like, the grumpy sunshine, like, morally gray, and like seeing his POV. Oh, I actually can't handle it. Like, if I think about it too much, I'll get worked up. What else did I say? This is a really good, the heat's kicking on, or the AC, I don't know. The weather here is insane. This is a very good cozy fantasy, and it's more YA than adult. There's no smut at all. But the romance and the banter, like, oh my gosh, it is so, the banter in here is actually unmatched. It is, this is a 5-star book. This is a 6-star book. I love this book. And the cover is just so cute. Then, I finally read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I have many, many, many thoughts. I did give it 4 stars. I originally gave it 3 stars, but something that affects my ratings is how often I think about the book later, and I think about this book daily. It's a duology, I think. I know there's a sequel. I think it's only a duology. But my problem is that each book has a trope that I hate. So this one, the trope was like anonymous letters, and I hate that. It wasn't like as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Like, it wasn't like pretending to be somebody else, but it was anonymous, which I don't love. Also, the writing like really threw me off. Like, they say eventide and baseball on the same page, and while they're like, she like rips a button off of his pants, and he's like, careful, like, that's my last pair or whatever, and she goes, I'll repair it. You know, now I kind of feel like I'm like being picky about it. The writing was weird to the point where I could not pinpoint like the environment. It didn't like immerse me because I couldn't tell. It's like the technology was like industrial age America, but they talked like it was medieval times or a fantasy world, and there's like gods and goddesses, but like not enough information to know like where, I don't know. I could not wrap my mind around that, but the story itself is very, very, very good. The romance of it the story is, but the actual like overarching plot is very, very good, and the ending destroyed my soul. I did not see that coming. I knew this one was a cliffhanger. I knew this was a series, so I was prepped for it, but I was not prepped for it as much as I needed to be. The duology comes out in December, and it has a trope of, according to the summary, it has a trope of amnesia. Oh, I hate, double hate, loathe entirely.
Hate. Double hate. Loathe entirely.
I hate that. I hate amnesia. Say You Swear, the football romance, was a 5-star read until there was an amnesia issue, and I can't stand it. So I'm very worried about that. But I did give it 4 stars. I do think about it all the time. Then I read Her Grumpy Neighbor Until Halloween. I gave this one 3 stars, which is kind of my like it's good and I recommend it and it's cute, but it didn't like stick out to me. What does Abby say? It didn't stick out to me. This one's in the middle of the Abby Lee pyramid. Oh my gosh, but if I did an Abby Lee pyramid of the month. Write that down. Oh, that's good. Okay. Moving on. Okay. So this is the one about the professional baker who is living in a house and he sees a girl breaking into his elderly neighbor's house and like freaks out, but she's just house sitting and couldn't get in. It's a romance. It's like a Grumpy Sunshine romance. It was very basic and very cute. They did have a really, really romantic like Hail Mary after the 3rd act breakup. Like there's always like a breakup. Well, if there is a 3rd act breakup, there's always something that brings them back together, and his like gesture, his grand gesture was actually so good. Like, maybe, you know what, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars, because that grand gesture, I think about it all the time, and it like saved the book from being like mid. Like, it just gave me life. Then I read, I don't know why I did this, I read another Sophie Lark book, and last month I didn't like it. So I tried There Are No Saints, and if you've read it, I didn't realize, oh my gosh.
I think maybe we're not seeing heaven.
I saw a scene from it on TikTok, and it was giving kind of like crime love story. Oh, I made a mistake. Basically, it's these 2 serial killers, and they like both like hone in on this girl, and like, okay, this happens in like the first 50 pages, so this might be a spoiler, but this happens so quickly. One of them decides that he's going to, okay, maybe I shouldn't say all this. I'll say it and I'll bleep it if I need to. Okay. He and like and leaves her there. Then the love interest comes by, because it was like this whole plot by his enemy to like make him run across it and either SA her or unalive her. And he walks away. He leaves her there, bleeding out. And then she's a badass, and so she somehow gets to the road, like, I don't even know. And then they, like, fall in. It's awful. I thought I liked morally gray dark romance. It's not morally gray. That man is morally decrepit. He's a corrupt man, and she needs so much therapy. Anyways, I hated that. Oh, I gave that one 1 star. 1 star usually means I DNF'd it, but I finished it. I ended up like skimming through most of it just to finish it, and then I just actively hated it. So, 1 star. Did I have any notes? I just wrote ew and hard pass. Then I read, I didn't grab this book. Is there any more I didn't grab? I don't think so. I hope that focuses. Glasses? Nailed it. Okay. Then I read They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I want you to see this cover without because it's such a pretty cover. Anyways, I got this as a blind date with a book like a year ago, and I was waiting for like spooky yuki time to read it, and it was so good. I gave it 4 stars. It was very like Dark Academia vibes, which is why I picked it for October. I will say, it started off very, very slow. Like, the first little bit, I was like, oh my gosh. I don't like, it's giving like Maidens by Alex Michaelides or whatever. But then like the main like twist happened and my jaw dropped. And the rest of it was so good. So many plot twists. I loved it at the end. So it's one of those you kind of got to stick to it. Not as much as like The Secret History, but this one you kind of have to stick with it through the beginning, but it's worth it. We have Hopeless by Elsie Silver. It's 5 stars. Did anybody doubt? Honestly, you actually can't trust my ratings with this series. I rated them all 5 stars. I'm biased. I cannot be like neutral or objective about this. I love the Chestnut Springs series to my core. I'm so sad that it's over. This book series is perfect. I love getting back into this world, getting back into these characters. And this one is the age gap romance. The military guy who's like, they're fake dating because her name is like frowned upon in the town. And people treat her terribly. Oh, okay, what were my notes on this? I wrote a lot. I said, Beau is back to being my bestie. I adore him because he said some pretty awful things in Reckless? Can't read. In Theo and Winter's book. He's going through it, so I was like, I need this book to like get me to understand him more, so he's back to being my bestie. Bailey's story broke my heart. Like, I knew, like, from the summary and all of the, like, pre-release stuff that she, like, had a rough life, but oh my gosh, my heart just broke. Like, I love her. I was worried because she's, like, brand new. Like, recently we've been having a lot of, like, we've already been introduced to the characters when they, become the main character in the next book. She was basically brand new. And I was worried about that, but I loved her. I fell in love with her so fast. Like, she's just, she's one of my favorite girls. I feel like the idea of the Edens being royalty in the town is a long-awaited discussion. Yes. In this book, Bailey tells Beau how they're basically royalty, and basically says, like, she kind of calls him out for his, brooding kind of thing. He's, like, talking about how he doesn't like to work on the farm in the first little bit, and she's like, do you know how many people hate their jobs and have to go anyway? Like, you're so lucky that you're raised in a place where everybody wants to help you and you have enough money to not go to work and blah blah blah. And really, like, what did you say? Privilege checks him in a way that I feel like he really needed, and she helped him figure out what he needed from life, like what his next step was, because he was just stuck. And he supported her a lot. This reminds me of A False Start by Elsie Silver in her Gold Rush Ranch series. Oh, I can't breathe. Talking too fast. And that was my favorite couple, Griffin and the other girl. This is perfect. This is a perfect book. It's 5 stars. The entire series is 5 stars. Read the entire series. My least favorite cover, though, of the mirrors, but... Okay, then we have one I'm kind of sad about. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace was a 5-star read for me, so I picked up Wildfire by Hannah Grace, and I gave this book 2.5 stars. And I'm a little bit heartbroken about it. This is the one night stand and enforced proximity, but they're camp counselors, so they're not allowed to date. And I was so bored. I was so bored. Like, the book could have been this long with actual plot, and the rest was just like fluff, like just scenes that didn't really mean anything. And I will say the like third act breakup section wasn't really a third act breakup, and they handled it maturely, so that was a plus. I do love the characters. I love Russ and I love Aurora, but a lot of my ratings, like I said, come down to skimming, and I skimmed so much. I was so bored this whole time. Like, I didn't want to pick it back up. I obviously wasn't going to DNF it because it's Hannah Grace, but I was very disappointed with this book, and I'm sorry. Okay, after that, I went on an Allie Beck run. So I read her Web of Lies series. I think it's self-published. There's less than 2,000 reviews on Goodreads. I am obsessed with this series. Like, obsessed. Let me try and remember everything. Okay. So this one is about a girl whose best friend got murdered at this fancy boarding school. So she goes to the fancy boarding school and she meets some of the people from the emails that her best friend sent her, like Chase, Seeger, and Zepp, who are football players. And she said that they were her bullies, but she meets them and she's like, I don't know about that.
You sure about that?
But then she also meets Carter, who they call Cruel Carter, who's also in the emails bullying her, and she's like, yeah, that checks out. And they're all hot, obviously. And I literally, I wrote, I don't want to say anything about this because, like, within the first 50 pages is a plot twist that, like, I don't want to talk about because I want you to read it and get all the twists. However, I will say, I guessed a lot of the plot reveals. I guessed a lot of the mystery. A lot of it seemed very obvious to me. A lot of it was like, aren't you supposed to be like some sort of genius? Like, I figured it out. Like, there's like you see her emails, and I accidentally on my Kindle skipped to the middle of the book and saw an email with no context and decoded it because I just noticed. And anyways. Also, I thought this series was like YA. It is not. It is X-rated. I think that for some reason, like, the cover of the first one was giving me YA. It is X-rated. You need to be an adult. It gets darker and darker, but Tangled Truth is the second book. It's also 4 stars. It's my favorite book in the series. My favorite character gets a lot more screen time. But speaking of my favorite character, I will say the one critique I had was that the F word must be 25% of his dialogue. When he's speaking and when he's like, when you're in his head, the F word so much. The F word to an amount that it's like, my guy, take a breather. It doesn't need to be every single word. Then, Wicked Deceit was my least favorite, and I think that's just because, like, a bunch of the overarching plot, ends up happening, and I guessed basically all of it. There were very, very few surprises left for me. And also in her books, like, especially near the end of a series, when the plot's getting to the point where you're like, something big's gonna happen, the amount of scenes goes, just skyrockets. Like, to why are we doing this? Like, I love smut as much as the next girl, but I was like, homie, like, this is not the time. Like, the stakes are too high for this to happen this many times. And one of the scenes, I was like, this is not safe. Like, the little game they were playing, I was like, maybe don't be outside right now? Question mark, question mark, question mark. But that whole trilogy was very, very good. I might buy the physical copies and annotate it. I loved the characters. Then I read her other series. It's a duology called Bitter Notes and Sweet Strings. One problem I had with this from the start. So the first book, I gave them both 3 stars. The epilogue of the third book in the Web of Lies series basically leads you into the in-between of the first book and the second book in this duology. This is why I don't read epilogues, my friends. Although I wouldn't have read the series without the epilogue. But sometimes it can be pulled off where you know something's going to happen and you don't know how it's going to happen. Like in Love and Other Words or other, like, second chance romances. Like, they broke up for some reason. But this one, I was just like, it was too unbelievable. It wasn't, like, that's why Love and Other Words has 5 stars for me, because it makes sense. This one, I was just like, come on now. What other notes did I have? Oh, this is a Why Choose Romance. FYI, everything is rated X by her. Then I read Sweet Strings, and I like this one more than the first one. I did have to, like, kind of skim through, like, the trope with the breakup I feel like that's not a spoiler because you're supposed to read the epilogue before. Anyways. The time jump, but the tropes in this one were much better. The risk, like the stakes were a lot higher. She also did the thing again with the smut going way up when I'm like, something bad is about to happen, and I just know it. Like, she puts a scene in, like, and 2 paragraphs later is this, like, big bad thing, and I'm like, homie, you're at your child's birthday party. Take it easy. But it's okay. I forgive her. Now we're going to do my TBR. So my first set is new releases. I will be reading Iron Flame immediately as soon as it hits my doorstep, which is the second Fourth Wing, so I'm not really going to give it a summary because I don't want you to know. Then, same day, Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher comes out, which is her new, like, billionaire series, and this one's about a guy named Julian and a girl named Dahlia, and they're, like, family friends turned childhood rivals, like, now they're enemies, and she's an interior designer, but his mom gets him to make a deal with her about redesigning their historical home to turn, like, 3 times profit or something, so forced proximity business. Very exciting. And then Do Your Worst by, Rosie McCann, I think, comes out later, the 14th, question mark, where an occult expert and a disgraced archaeologist become enemies with benefits. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. I can't even, okay. Other ones that are already released, obviously. I've got You Again by Kate Goldbeck. I've got this one all prepped. I haven't started it, but I've picked out my annotating colors. I've got the bookmark in. This one's about these 2 people who met a while ago and hated each other. The only thing they had in common was they were sleeping with the same girl, and then they, like, meet up later and kind of, like, become, like, friends with no benefits, kind of, like, they're both going through stuff, so that looks very good. Also got Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. It's still got, like, the Barnes & Noble stickers that, like, leave residue are my mortal enemy. This is, like, the prettiest book ever. I got the whole duology, so the second one's probably also on my TBR, but this one is freaking 780 pages. This one is about a half-fae, half-human named Bryce, who is loving life, but then there's a murder, and her world comes crashing down 2 years later. She's just, like, drinking her life away, and then a murderer attacks again, and fallen angel Hunt Athalar is assigned to watch her every footstep. This was my next Sarah J. Maas book, because I don't want to invest in the whole Throne of Glass series just yet. Then I also got Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. The last book in this trilogy just came out. I'll have to wait for that to be in paperback. I want to read this. I am concerned I'll have to buy everything else, but this is about Evangeline, who believes in true love until her true love is betrothed to somebody else, and so she makes a deal with the immortal Prince of Hearts to stop the wedding, but she soon discovers it's a dangerous game that will end in the greatest happily ever after, the most exquisite tragedy. That sounds so good. Okay, then we have a couple Kindle books. We've got Night Shift by Annie Crown, which is about a girl named Kendall who works at a school library that's basically like a ghost town Friday nights. And so she just sits there reading romances and spends time with herself until a guy named Vincent Knight, who's captain of the basketball team, has an injury. And he ends up coming to her, like, desperate for poetry recommendations for a class, and they kind of, like, banter. I assume it's a romance book. Then I'm going to read Magnolia Park. Magnolia Parks? I'm going to read that this month. Beautiful, affluent, self-involved, and mildly neurotic London socialite, and he is most photographed bad boy who broke her heart. Magnolia and BJ are meant to be, and everyone knows that they're in the stars, but it's toxic, apparently. Very interested to see how I'll feel about that. Then we have Exposed by Tamsin Schultz. It's a mystery about a girl named Sophia who got a divorce and packs up to go to her childhood home, but a stalker that she used to have seems to come back to life and there's a murder. And then as I was reading, there's a boy in it who's a single dad, and it's kind of like a love story too, so that's what made me snatch onto that one. And then I'm going to try If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I'll have to get into a certain state of mind for that, but it is a fall state of mind, like a Secret History, Dark Academia, a Patience type of book is what I've read in the reviews. It's about a man named Oliver who was serving 10 years in prison for a murder he may or may not have committed, and when he gets out, the detective's waiting for him and wants answers, and he gives them, and it's like a Shakespeare type thing. There were 7 young actors studying Shakespeare at an elite college, and they played their roles on and off the stage: hero, villain, tyrant, temptress, ingenue, and extra. And then the casting changes, and secondary characters usurp the stars, and it spills dangerously into real life, and somebody ends up dead, and then they have to act innocent, apparently. Sounds very much like Secret History, which was a hard read, but a very, very good read. So those are the 13 books that I read during October, during spooky season, and those are the books that I'm hoping to get to this month of November. So I hope you have a good reading month as well, and I'll see you in the next video.